Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching DEJI360. Now, very crucial to what happened when the APC held its presidential primaries, everybody was looking forward or looking at the way those who lost that primary, the way they were going to react. Especially, all eyes were on Atiku. That's the former vice president of the country. People wanted to know if he was going to accept the result or probably, like we've seen in the past, defect. But crucially, all the aspirants who lost all came out to endorse and support, pledge their support to the winner of that presidential primary, that's General Muhammadu Buhari. Now, before the election took place, all the aspirants had actually pledged to abide by the outcome of the election, the primary election, and they had all said, they had actually all signed an from the party, and true to their words, they all came out pledging their support for Buhari and the party. Let's take a listen to what they said immediately.
I also want to use this opportunity given to me to congratulate the winner of these primary elections, General Muhammadu Buhari. General Muhammadu Buhari has been an embodiment of nation building in this country for decades. And he has continued to offer himself and his services to this country. Your Excellency, I want to assure you the support of this great party, which is the newest political party in Africa today.
On behalf of my humble self and all the supporters, especially the delegates that have voted for me, and those who did not get the opportunity to vote for me, I want to congratulate the winner of this very historic primary election here in Lagos. I therefore congratulate General Muhammadu Buhari, and as we earlier agreed, that whoever wins this election will come together and work as a single family. Let me assure our supporters, both in Kano and across this country, that we'll work together for the success of APC at all levels.
This moment marks the end of these days of struggle on who flies our party's flag. Now responsibility has fallen on a new shoulder, the GMD. I believe that it's God that has made this possible for him. And I believe that it is for a purpose. But for me, candidly speaking, it came to him because he's the oldest in the family of the contestants. And the next one will be the youngest of the family. My pepper, my pepper. My General Muhammadu Buhari, we're with you. We'll support you. We have now taught the world that internal democracy can be respected in a political party. When one wins on a clear slate, he's happy. And when one loses clearly, he's also happy. I want to commend you, the members of this committee.
Well, now, that's exactly what the candidates all said shortly after General Buhari emerged the winner of the presidential primaries. I must confess that we never thought that was going to happen. It's a long time we saw that kind of thing. Joining me on the program right now to discuss that issue, I mean, that aspect of the program, and of course some other aspects of the primary election, is Achike Chude, who actually observed the election. He was there as an observer. He was there all through the process. The process, by the way, lasted for about 48 hours. Achike, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Always a pleasure, yeah.
You must have had some good sleep.
Oh, yes, well-deserved, I think.
Well-deserved, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, it was like a sacrifice and, but crucially, how crucial do you think those words of support now coming from the other aspirants who lost, how crucial do you think that will be for Buhari in the days ahead?
As crucial as they can be, because right now, they have moved from an adversarial mode to that of, like I said, support, working together, togetherness, for the survival of the party. Of course, you know that when a party goes into an election and then comes out badly beaten, a lot of questions are being asked, and the party struggles to redefine itself. Like we're having, for instance, in the United States and every other country where you have major parties go into an election and they come back badly bruised and so on. And so there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of expectation, especially if you look at the nature and the manner of the coming into being of the APC. So much controversy trailed the registration of APC. At the time, there was the insinuation that the federal government, led by the PDP, was doing everything possible to frustrate the registration of the APC and so on. And of course, INEC eventually registered the APC. Then there was another issue of, we know these people, their beds, they're not exactly beds of the same, feather. They are going to collapse, they are going to implode. It's just a matter of time. So there was a lot of, prophecy of doom about this marriage of convenience that has happened according to what they were saying. But over time, people expected that to happen. People expected a lot of bickering, especially in the choice and in the election and the selection of the party leadership and so on. That did not seem to happen. And it would appear that the APC has grown, from one stage to the next stage, culminating in this primary that eventually took place. And people, like you said again in your opening, expected a lot of bad blood to accrue.
But we saw some seeming unity. I mean, what do you make of that sense of unity we saw displayed by these politicians? These are politicians we know in the past who would never accept.
Yes, I think they have an historical sense of responsibility and duty and obligation to themselves and to their political party. That of Nigeria is a different ball game, because that is the very next stage after they have gone for an election. If they win, then there is the issue of the country. What do we do with the country and so on? So their stake, I want to tell you that their reputation was at stake. Everything about them was at stake. Their credibility as political leaders, was at stake, because the process that brought about the APC was a very long and arduous one. And a lot of compromises, a lot of sacrifices were made, as they journeyed towards the culmination of their togetherness and so on. And they also realized the fact that people were watching, Nigerians were watching. Most importantly, the opposition, the PDP, was watching.
Exactly.
And hopefully, the PDP would have been hoping that it would not have worked out, that it would not work out as smoothly as it did work. Just the same way the APC, has an ambivalent, kind of response to anything that the PDP does. But they came out of it unscathed, more or less. Hopefully, from what we have seen, more united, more together, more focused, more motivated. And
let's look at it from this angle now. Do you see? Would you expect that people like Atiku Abubakar, the former vice president, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the governor of Kano State, Rocha Sokorocha of Imo, and of course the other aspirants who all lost. Do you see them contributing, for instance, in terms of funds now to actualizing the dream of
they have no
party,
choice.
to take over power?
Yeah, they have no choice, because whatever victory they are going to have in the election in regards to the presidential election will be their victory, not just a Buhari victory. And whatever loss they are going to suffer will be their loss, not a Buhari loss. So they all lose. They have already put in so much money, so much resources, so much time into this project. They want to see this project succeed. And the only way the project can succeed is if they take it towards an expected end, and that is victory at the elections. But again, there was something Rocha Sokorocha said, that when a person loses gallantly, when a person loses
so clearly
and transparently and so on, it becomes very difficult for such a person to make noise. You understand? And I think that is what has happened. It was transparent, it was clear. At least
that would probably lead me. That would surely lead me to the next question. You were there as an observer. You saw the entire process. Give me, what's your take on what you saw?
Yes, I will answer that, but I just needed to make one other point about Atiku's acceptance. Yes, he accepted, and for all we know, that was what he felt he should do. But do not also forget that Atiku has no other place to go to. He left the PDP. He was a founder of the PDP, had issues with them much later on as vice president, eventually left to the APC
and
moved from the APC back to the PDP, then PDP back to the APC. Believe me, he had no choice, but to remain within the fold of the APC, and make it grow. Now, you were talking about the actual observation of the elections.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that for the first, is it 24 hours or maybe 18 hours, the first 18 hours, it was peaceful, well organized, well structured. The administration of that election was okay. And then getting close to voting, in fact, during the voting process, we began to see the ugly side, or some ugly sides of the whole thing. When they issue heap accolades on the conduct of that primary, we must also have it at the back of our mind that there were some disturbances.
And of course, by these disturbances, you must be referring to what happened when the Delta State delegates actually came out to vote, and something actually happened. And then there was this shouting match. And,
because
it almost mad the process.
Yes, it was serious, because it degenerated, from a verbal confrontation and became physical, and there was, a physical fight between, some contending forces, at that particular point in time. The party leadership came in to try to intervene. It was in the process that, the whole thing broke down. There were accusations of, an attempt by some people not to prevent them from voting for their man, and so on, and accusations of manipulation and so on. Of course, these things were not proven, but it was there because there was an administrative lapse somewhere. Some of them were supposed to have voted with two, of the cards in place, and then they now discovered that some delegates did not have it, and that generated some problem. They had, Abia State also had the same issue, but I think they exercised some discretion. So when it came to Delta, they didn't understand why they would not vote, and it degenerated. Then we had a few cases of impersonation. I was there. 2 women had joined the Enugu delegation. They were obviously impersonators, because the delegation from Enugu pointed them out that we do not know who you are. And then they took them on. What's your local government, and what's the chairman of your local government? They couldn't answer any of these questions, and so they were, driven out. Then there were also incidences with the Kano delegation that almost degenerated into a fight. But I guess that these are some of the discrepancies that you expect in a process like this. If anybody tells you that, look, we would expect, to have a flawless 100%, primary, I think that did not exactly happen, but you will score them very, very high. By and large, as part of these skirmishes and this, contentions and so on, I think, when they say all is well that ends well, I think it ended well. I think, in spite of all of these things, that we still had a fairly good, primaries. But we must also say that the politics that we saw play out in the primary was settled somewhere else.
And let's talk about the politics. What kind of politics? We're still talking about the primaries now. What kind of politics did we see play out? or that you heard actually playing?
Well, I think it was essentially, the politics for the survival of the party. And,
because before election actually started, there were insinuations that some of the candidates had actually stepped down.
Yeah.
We thought that had actually happened. And of course, information later filtered through that 12 governors had endorsed Buhari.
Yes, we had.
And that the other candidates the other aspirants had actually offered to step down, but that Atiku Abubakar refused.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that was the rumor that was making the rounds, and so on, that every other person had accepted to step down, that the only recalcitrant person was Atiku Abubakar. And I think that was believed by a lot of people, especially the media, the journalists and so on that were there. So I think it was also surprising that all of them, every single one of them, contested keenly
but we must,
that particular election.
One must admit to the fact that it's a good thing that nobody.
Believe me, it was more of credit to the party. I think it would have been
election that was actually conducted.
Yes, it was contested keenly, and we all saw what happened, that they all took part and so on. Of course, we've always known about these arrangements, these last-minute arrangements, these compromises, this consensus, and so on and so forth. You could say, well, for as long as the people themselves who are involved allow that, then you could say it's part of the expression of freedom, the democratic expression and so on. But the reality is that democracy, especially election of this type, is about contestation. And so you have to allow people to exercise their ability, and not just some party, some members of the party hierarchy somewhere sitting down and then ramming it down the throats of their members who have no choice than to go along with what their leaders have said. They allowed the people themselves to participate, to be this decisive factor in this particular election. And that exactly is what cascades and what trickles down to every member of the party all over the country. Because you now have a candidate that has emerged as a result of a keen contest. So the tendency for everybody to want to gravitate towards, Buhari in his support is much higher, because it's not a product of consensus. It's not a product of compromise, but a product of the active participation of the democratic principle of election. And I think that is the essence, that is the ideal of democracy.
I have to ask you, before the election proper, a lot of people had actually predicted it was going to be a two-horse race between General Buhari and Atiku Abubakar. But surprisingly, Atiku Abubakar actually came third.
Yeah, I would say so. That was what a lot of people thought. And again, they were also surprised about the outcome. Because, of course, it's clear, like you said, Atiku actually came third. But the reality is that this is not the Atiku of 15 years ago. That Atiku had a lot of clout, had a lot of influence, had a lot of, not just resources, but he had the ability, to get things done in this country. That Atiku was also responsible for the emergence of Olusegun Obasanjo as president of this country. That Atiku was also responsible for the second term of Olusegun Obasanjo. He played a pivotal role, because at that particular point in time, some of the governors, and I think it was Ojikalo that said that publicly, the governors had wanted Atiku to run, instead of Obasanjo for the second term. They believed in him. They wanted him. They had a better relationship with him. They understood him much more. You understand? And they felt he had what it takes to become president. And so for, Atiku to engage himself, in an election of this magnitude, many years down the line, and he's not able to put up a very impressive performance, tells you that this Atiku is one that has diminished politically. But in spite of that, he has shown some political maturity, in accepting freely the result of this election and pledging to work, with the person who came out winners. A lot of people expected that he would have put up a much better fight, but like I said, this is a diminished Atiku. But beyond that again,
in the future,
the governors were looking, and I believe also the delegates. The governors and the delegates were looking at the bigger picture. They were looking at the election in 2015. They were looking at at the
candidate was more
chances of the party, which candidate is more marketable, which candidate, you know, would be able to garner the kind of support, you know. And of course, you know that in the was it the last election or so, he garnered about 12 million votes, which is not, you know, it's not a small thing by Nigerian standards.
That's a huge bank check.
It is. Yeah. So he's proving that he can actually do well in elections and so on. And now where you have a situation where the president, the reasons that actually helped to galvanize support and vote for him in 2011 are slightly different. You have security issues that he has not been able to, you know, actually handle. Effectively. You have the energy issue even after the privatization, program resulting from his reformation agenda. You know, you have other myriads of social economic problems and so on. So you also have a president that has, you know, been involved in governance for the past 3.5 years, and that people can actually assess him on the basis of those.
Let me pause you there because you talked about the president. Now, President Goodluck Jonathan was actually, well, his nomination was actually ratified in Abuja the same day that the APC actually had its own presidential primary. That same moment, at that very same moment, President Goodluck Jonathan, well, as we all know, we all knew he was going to emerge the presidential candidate of his party because he was actually the only candidate. Anyway, that was ratified in Abuja, and of course, the ceremony, well, it didn't last long like that of the APC, and well, he's the candidate, and he, of course, would be facing up to General Muhammadu Buhari. Achike, let me bring you in here. The process that brought Goodluck Jonathan, you know, to becoming the candidate of the PDP, do you think that process is likely to undermine his performance in next year's election?
Well, I think we should look at it from this perspective. People have been talking about it, and people have talked about it in the negative, you know, in negative terms and so on, but especially the opposition. But I think that the opposition has been less than charitable in their public comments about that. I think they have not been very generous and reasonable over this. Because they have, believe me, they have no basis to make whatever comments they've been making about Jonathan emerging as a consensus candidate. You look at all the incumbents in this country from 1999 till date. At what point have the governors ever been challenged? The APC has been on ground. At what point have any of their candidates who were seeking a second term, you know, ever been challenged by anybody, really? In that sense, the parties have always put their machinery behind their incumbents, because in trying to encourage, you know, competition against their incumbents in an election would, you know, in the minds of these parties would seem like they want to undermine, you know, their incumbents. So it is a normal thing. United States and other democracies of the world, whether it's the Republican Party or it is the Democratic Party and so on, there's always that tendency for everybody to rally around the president.
So there's basically nothing wrong with what the PDP has done. Nothing
wrong. It's almost a given. It's almost an automatic that the President Obama, for instance, has to go for a second term. And so the party will frown at anybody, you know, trying to, you know, move in from the ranks in order to undermine, because it's going to involve a lot of politicking. You want to pull, you know, the president down.
Exactly.
You have to criticize, you're pulling down the party, because you have to criticize the politics of the party, which under normal circumstances should be, you know, those, you know, policies, you know, that have been dictated to by the political party and so on. The only negative I will say about this is the fact that we were told that some people wanted to pick up forms. Do you understand that the party said forms were not available? Now, that was not right. Perhaps they would have looked for other ways to try to get those people to, you know, not show the kind of interest that they wanted to show for the sake of party unity. But in the context of incumbency and second terms all over the world, I do not think that the PDP has done something terribly wrong.
President Jonathan did something unexpected. The very day he was actually pronounced candidate, the moment when he was giving his speech in Abuja, immediately he announced his running mate to be the vice president. You think that was a master stroke? probably to prevent some kind of permutations coming in and some kind of intrigues? Because before now, we had heard that some people were actually agitating that he dropped Namadi Sambo as his vice presidential candidate in the election.
I think it was a masterstroke. I think I can say that. It wasn't expected. But I think his mind had already been made up. And if your mind had already been made up and you're comfortable with that decision, why delay it? And just like you said, delaying it would lead to all kinds of, pressure being brought to bear on him. All kinds of intrigue that will be unhealthy for himself and therefore his political party and so on. And it will be distracting. And so I think he did the right thing. I agree, it was, a masterstroke. And if you have been very happy with Namadi Sambo, and again, that would also put a lie on some of the things we have been hearing about his relationship with Namadi Sambo, how estranged, he has been, or with the vice president and so on, and how they are working at dissonance, working different parts and so on, even though they are in the same government as president and vice president and the rest. So that would seem to put a lie on some of these things, that people had been saying all this while. Or definitely, if he did not feel very comfortable with Namadi Sambo, if he felt that Namadi Sambo has not been a loyal vice president and so on, then it would be funny for him to have, taken him on board.
Do you think President Jonathan Goodluck is going to find it easy this time? 2015 election.
I do not think
easier than he found it
under normal circumstances.
2011.
Under normal circumstances, I do not think he will. I do not think any incumbent. I've always maintained that all incumbents, are in the best position to determine their fate in any subsequent election they want to get involved in. Because
by their
performance, they stand the best chance of proving to the people that you have no choice than to bring me back to power. But at the same time, it is also a position of weakness, if a very big disadvantageous position if they have not performed well, because on the basis of their records, the tendency for them to be brought back to power is high. It is also very, very high if they have not performed. The competitor, the opponent, does not have this luxury of showcasing his ability, to do better than the other person, or because he has done it. He does not have that opportunity. But at the same time, his greatest strength lies in the fact that perhaps his adversary, his political opponent, has failed. So he can now, showcase his failure as a basis for why the people, should look at him. So the president will not find it easy. But DEJI, some time ago, I think about maybe 2 years ago in this studio, I had told you something about the kind of politics that will be playing out in 2015. Permutations were being made in this studio about the viability of Jonathan to come back to power, the possibility of him to come back to power. And people were looking at the rest of the country, every part of the country, and said yes, he was going to achieve, 12 to 30, more than 25, 25%.
Going to get 25% in two-thirds of all the states across the country.
Of all the states across the country and so on. And I said something, and I think this is what we see playing out. I said you cannot put anything beyond the ruling class, political elites in this country. These are people that are motivated primarily by selfish interests. And they use the instrumentality of religion and ethnicity as a basis to keep the people divided. And so when that time comes, and some of them begin to find things, and they begin to see the possibility of coming back, to power, thin out. The tendency is that they will introduce, a religious flavor, ethnic flavor to the politicking in the country. And I think that this is what we're seeing play out. The reality is that our country is divided, perhaps much more than ever in its history, apart from the period leading up to the Civil War.
Let me just ask you this on a final note now. You think this next year's election might be, or next year might be the year we might see the opposition for the very first time in the history of this country defeat a ruling party? Is there a chance?
I think that is possible. But of course, you must also say that the future, since even right now, we're just about 2-3 months away from that election, but it still seems hazy. A lot of uncertainty in the system, in the country. Economic issues, political issues, security issues and the rest. But I think in the midst of this, the possibility of the PDP losing is always there. I'm not going to take it off the table. But there's also the possibility that they could come back to power. Because, of course, you know that sentiments are going to play, sentiments will play a big major role in this incoming election. Sure. So I cannot rule Jonathan, coming back. I cannot rule that out. I also cannot dismiss outright a possible Buhari victory. But for that to happen, they need to do a lot of work.
Both sides would need to work hard.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Well, just before we go, we want you to take a look at what the aspirants, the presidential aspirants at that APC primary actually said before voting actually began. They made their pitches to the delegates. Take a listen to what they told the delegates just before the delegates began casting their votes.
And today, I ask for your votes and support as I have these 5 pledges to make. 1, I will honestly govern Nigeria in accord with the Constitution and the rule of law. 2, I will bring all resources necessary to end poverty through ending corruption, promoting broadly shared economic growth, investing in our country, and creating jobs. 3, I will tolerate no religious, regional, ethnic, or gender bias. 4, I will return Nigeria to a position of international respect through active and wise foreign policy. 5th and lastly, I will select the best Nigerian proposed in my government.
I pray that you will give me the opportunity to lead our party, the All Progressive Congress, in the movement to bring about this change for a better Nigeria, a Nigeria for all. Thus, I stand before you to offer myself for consideration as the candidate of our great party in the presidential election of 2015. Today, you will disprove those who say that there is no difference between the PDP and the APC, because today we will demonstrate that every vote counts and that we are serious about renewing our democracy by democratic means. Distinguished delegates, fellow Nigerians, the APC is offering something we have not had for a long time, real choice.
As Congressor, as the President and Commander-in-Chief, will do whatever it takes to support education. And as former Minister of Defense, I am beginning to wonder really what has happened in the last few years, because our members of the armed forces were well respected in this country, in Africa, and across the world. During our time, the military was in Liberia, was in Sierra Leone, they were in Darfur, and they did extremely well. I want to say at this point, our administration will provide all what it takes to members of the armed forces to ensure peace across the country.
When I say to Nigerians, I will make education free, Nigerians will believe me, because before I became a governor, I'm the founder and president of Rochas Foundation, where poor children can go to school without having to pay for school fees. And if I can do that as a businessman, and now as a governor, I've made education free up to university level, then I can do it as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is what I mean by track record. I'm a child of poor parentage. I hate poverty, I hate injustice. I know what it is to stay a whole day without food. I know what it is to cry, not seeing your children going to school. I suffered the pain in the past, and I swore that God Almighty, when you bless me, I must bless others. When you honor me, I will honor others. When you give me, I will share with those who do not have. Because I know on my own I can do nothing, but I can do all things through God who gives me strength. Let me say to all of you, the delegates, today destiny has brought to your shoulder the responsibility to decide for this nation a good leader. You must never play with it. This tag you wear today, and this ballot paper which they are about to give to you, that ballot paper contains the future of your children. In that ballot paper is the security of this nation. In that ballot paper is the job for our youths. You must cast it right. You must never negotiate with it. And you must never do it on basis of sentiments of where you come from. But if you do it right, ladies and gentlemen, by voting me as your presidential candidate, I assure you that one day, this Nigerian naira that is constantly weakening every day will come back again 1-to-1 with dollars. If you vote me one day again, this Nigerian flag, green, white, green, flying all over the nation, will command the commerce of other nations. If you vote me, ladies and gentlemen, I assure you that on 29th May, we shall sing the old national anthem. We say, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand.
I want to tell you why I'm the best candidate for this race. First, if the slogan of our party is change, then I don't think there is a better face for change like me. APC! Secondly, I think that Nigerians want a fresh face. Nigerians want a new generation to lead us into the next stage. At every time, at some times in the history of nations, a new generation is often called upon to step forward and take the country to the next level. And I believe this is the time in Nigeria. And thirdly, I also believe that I'm the only one that has come with a clear plan about the future. I'm the only one that's talking about big ideas. I'm the only one that has said that I want to move this country from where it is at the moment to a place where it has never been. I'm the only one who has said I want to change the course of history of this country. That is why I believe that I'm the best material for this job. Now I want to tell you what I want to do as president of this country. First, the first thing that I always say is that I want to unite this country as quickly as possible. From the first day I get sworn in as president. This country is too divided to be called a nation, and there's no country that is as divided as this country that can make progress. And I also believe that I will have to unite the whole of Nigeria as quickly as possible for the big ideas that I intend to use to change the course of history of this country.
Well, that's it on the program. We want to thank you for watching. If you want to watch it again, it's very simple. All you just need to do is go to our website. The address is tv360nigeria.com. You'll find the program and lots more there. You can also watch us on YouTube by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TV360 Nigeria. Follow us on Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria. And you could like us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/TV360 online. It's online, not actually .com. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is at TV360 online. Thank you very much for watching. We're back again next week.